special guest here from California. Will our closing panel together with Brian Jarret. Acho que você pode abrir o Brian Jarret no Zoom, tá?
Right here.
Por favor, Martin, it's you.
No, it should be okay.
15 minutes? Brian is joining you. Hello, Brian, can you hear us?
Yes, Jay, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Everybody?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. So, Brian, we have spent a full day here. It's around midday in California. We spent a whole day here talking about different perspectives on peace engineering. Brian Jarret is the chairperson of the program on negotiation and conflict resolution and peace at the California State University at Dominguez Hills. He organizes this amazing yearly cyber conference, which I have been able to participate in, and very kindly invites us to participate. Brian has been to Brazil, so this has been an ongoing cooperation with LIP, and it's a great pleasure to have you here, Brian, today to talk to us about dispute systems design.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate that. And do we have, from California, do we have another speaker at the same time, or am I just the person now?
The other speaker from California is here on site. It's Martin, who you introduced to me.
Okay, has Scott spoken already?
Yes, he's here.
Oh, great. Oh, good.
He'll be talking right after you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, got it. Let me go over to here, and I just want to share my screen and bring up if I could, and if it works. Everybody can see that. I want to just introduce, first of all, just to give you my email, it's bjarret@csudh.edu so that you can follow up. Anybody who's interested in following up with me can see that there's my information. And I'm happy to talk more on this topic as well with people, because I think it's a topic that moves the field forward. So it isn't just that it's an interesting topic, but I think it's also at the heart of moving the discipline forward. And so I really recommend dispute systems design to you, or DSD. In English, we say, for short, we say DSD, the technical term. Oh, that's a DSD practitioner. That's a DSD consultant. That's somebody who practices dispute systems design. And so you can see then.
Brian, just 1 second. Can you make it full screen?
Let's see how to do that.
I think the bottom right corner, there should be.
Let me just see here. Okay, with that. No, that's right corner.
The one right next to it.
Let's go back to here. Sorry, let me go to here. Does that help? Maybe like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I wanted to introduce you to some basic principles or ideas of dispute systems design and how they might interact with peace engineering and things to think about. So peace engineering itself is an interesting field and it's rapidly developing, but dispute systems design is developing itself in its own area, in different areas of practice. Alongside, you'll see this coming up. So there's a real connection that we can make between peace engineering and dispute systems design. So dispute systems design, or DSD, came out of Harvard University Program on Negotiation in the 80s. It was Yuri, Fisher, Yuri, and the Harvard team, basically, Goldberg, all of the people involved in the Harvard Program of Negotiation and the, principal negotiation, interest-based negotiation, interest-based mediation, getting to yes, all of that gave rise to the dispute systems design work that we see now that is so popular, and you see it all over the place now, rapidly developing. So the basic idea with design work is that we have to move the conversation from rights and power-based conflicts to interest-based conflicts. So moving from power to interests through rights. And so when you're doing this as an organizational consultant or community consultant, somebody in the community, indigenous community, for example, or a corporation, that would be a corporate example, or a court example, you could be in court doing this work as well, like helping a court build its own system. Basically, what you're doing is you're trying to move the system from a distressed system to an effective system. So most organizations, communities, the way they handle conflict is really looking at power first, then rights, then interests. So most of the systems are built around power disputes and outcomes of power plays. With an effective system, more functional, you would have power as one small element, but then as you go down the pyramid, you'll see you have rights and interests, and you're trying to get everybody to talk about interests and move the conversations to interests so that that organization then can address conflicts ahead of time. So it can address the conflicts before they occur. So this would be the interest-based strategy. So it's flipping the triangle on its head. So you can see that. So instead of power, rights, interest, it's power, rights, but interests are the predominant way of dealing with things. So that's very important because that changes the entire way of thinking. Now, the lawyer model, the lawyer frame, as we know, is adversarial. Lawyers are problem solvers as well, but they're generally the framework, the frame of seeing disputes is through a rights-based adversarial contest. That's different for engineers and other professions who can then add value by bringing the problem-solving approach as opposed to the adversarial frame. Engineers are natural problem solvers. And so this framework, the design framework, is a natural connection for the engineers. It also includes and connects to a lot of social science. So organizational development work, sociology, social psychology, people in the organizational consulting field also have a big part to play in this. So we can bring professions together around design thinking. And when we talk about dispute systems design, dispute systems design, DSD, or the systems word in there is big. What we mean by that is we're looking at how to engineer systems to help resolve disputes, often in advance of the dispute. But certainly once we get a dispute, we can handle it different than through the adversarial frame. And that's the point of this DSD, or dispute systems design. There are 6 basic principles. And these are principles that your early work in DSD, really, these were the first 6 principles. Now there's added principles, and people are developing and thinking about and wondering how to develop some of these ideas even further. And that's the question and invitation to you as well. How can you take these principles and move them further and develop them and think about how they might apply in different settings? It's basically anywhere where you have a dispute and you need a resolution of some kind, then DSD is going to come into play. And that's true, for example, with peace engineering, where you might have for example, you might want to implement some kind of engineering project, but you need some adjudication or some determination on that project, how to, for example, pay out something, or how to distribute some kind of invention, for example, some water filter that could be used. Well, you might need a way to adjudicate how to distribute those water filters. For example, it's just an example. That would require a designed approach. So here we have some principles of design. Now, these are the basic principles, and we can, as I say, we can add to these. First is putting the focus back on interests. We want the focus on interests and away from positions, legal positions, or away from the power-based contest. Secondly, we want to provide low-cost rights and power backups. So we still want the legal framework. We don't want to give away the legal framework. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We want to have legal backup, but we want to, whenever we can, have the conversation about interests and have our systems designed to be able to address interests. Then we can have arbitration, court, a trial as a backup. But we want to really focus on interests first and then but still want those backups in place, obviously, if the interest discussion falls through. Third, we always want loop backs to negotiation. So whenever we have any process, if it's an arbitration, we always want to be able to stop the arbitration and then go back to negotiate and set it aside, go off the record, and then speak in negotiation to resolve something. That always allows us to have flexibility in the process. Number 4, we want to build consultation before any of these events, any arbitration, mediation, fact-finding, early neutral evaluation. We want to consult before those processes. We always want to have feedback after those processes. So we want the parties to tell us what worked and what didn't work. And that we're looking at double loop learning. We're trying to, Peter Zenger, we're trying to look at how to learn from any one of these processes that is implemented. Okay. Number 5, we want to arrange the procedures to be the most efficient. So we want the cheaper procedures first before we go to the more expensive procedures. So we want to go to negotiation, mediation, non-binding arbitration, before binding arbitration, before trial, before any of these more legal processes, rights-based processes. And number 6, don't ever start a project unless there is true and sincere money to make the project work. So in other words, if somebody, management of in a community or in an organization tells you they want to implement a design project on dispute resolution to address disputes that they're having in that organization or community, you want to make sure that they're serious in terms of the life of that project and the funding that will be required for it. You don't want to go into a project where there's a tentative, setting aside of resources, or there's a fake setting aside of resources, because then it becomes sort of a fake project. And that's what you want to be very careful about. That's number 6, that these projects are real, that they're funded, that they have a timeline, that the organization or community's in there for that timeline, that you're providing feedback as you go along. So that's very important to understand these 6 principles and be able to apply these principles whenever you're doing a DSD or a design project. There are 4 basic steps to any DSD project. The first one is identifying the problem. So you have to identify the type of disputes, the disputes that are occurring in that organization or in a community. Second, then you have a design project, but the designing of the project, unlike most traditional HR or human resource management training or business training or MBA training or training, in organizational development, what this adds here, the design process, number 2 here, it involves the participants or stakeholders throughout the organization, throughout the community. That's very different than the old way of thinking, just consulting with management and saying, oh, this is what we're going to do to resolve these conflicts. It's a very different approach. Remember, because it's interests, it flips the triangle. So to get to the interests, you have to have participants throughout the organizational community have a voice. So often this will take longer to design because you're going to have to interview people in that organizational community to get the real story. And you're going to have to be able to interview in a way that they don't feel threatened, that they're not, it's a situation where they can speak freely, that they're not under compulsion to speak or some kind of reward to say the right thing. You want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then you can better, as the organization consultant coming in, you're better able to design a system with the organization that works. Remember, if management couldn't resolve it and they're asking for a designed approach, it means that if you simply do the designed approach, that you will end up and not go to all of the stakeholders, the participants, and do the interviewing and all the work. You'll end up with another failed, they call it a stillbirth project. It's a bad term, but you get the idea. So you don't want to have a sort of a management top-down driven project, because what will happen is you'll end up in a situation where you reproduce the problems. So you need, in the design approach with DSD, what we emphasize is getting the full interview, the full range of voices to get to know what's going on. Third stage is to implement the design. So you give it a try. Here's the thing though, you do a pilot project. Don't always bite off every bit of the, the apple. You want just a little bit to try. So a really nice way to make these projects work, and I would say particularly in the engineering field, is to take a pilot, make a small pilot project, and then see if we can get some success. Once we get success on the pilot, we can build. Lastly is evaluation. Of course, you always want to evaluate the project because then you know if it's working or not, how to improve it. There, we generally take what we call is a appreciative inquiry approach. The appreciative inquiry AI, another AI, the appreciative inquiry approach. We're not there to, bulldoze the organization or criticize it, or, oh, this is terrible. Or on the other hand, we're not there to sing praises and, sweetness and light. We're in the kind of, here's what's working, and here's what we could improve, and here's what's not working, and here's what could improve. And we want to do that in iterations, so we revisit it as we go along. So the idea there is you don't want to be, it's a appreciative inquiry approach is, yes, you're doing some good things, but here's the things you need to improve. So and realistic with the organization about that. And I would say that's, and then you have these follow-ups where you come back. The idea with design though, is ultimately, you don't want to create a dependency model. You want to create a model where the organization itself can run that program without the consultant having to step in. That's when you've done a really good design. So this work is being done everywhere. It's done in courts, as I say, done in business organizations. It's done in communities now, indigenous communities also in Alaska, where I worked with Polly Heislop, for example. So there are lots of projects going on, and really recommend this approach and its potential added value to the peace engineering field. And so their books, the names of, look for, just you can Google dispute systems design, and you'll see there's a number of books now that are coming out on this, on the design principles and developing the principles and giving case studies. And it's terrific. Kathy Costantino, Bob Bordone, number of individuals doing that. Polly's doing the work, Polly Heislop in Alaska is doing the work, indigenous dispute systems design. So look for the books and the work, and I will stop there and take questions. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you very much, Brian. Any comments, questions? No? Would you like? Brian, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the work that you do at CSUDH and also about the conference that you organize once a year so that we can attract some people with a synergy to the work that you're doing there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm the director of the program on conflict resolution, peace building, and negotiation. We do dispute resolution in all kinds, including restorative practices for different communities, and in both the civil side and the criminal context. So we both the full spectrum of applications. We teach design, dispute systems design. We teach dispute resolution, of course, arbitration, mediation, fact-finding, early neutral evaluation, investigation, these different practices. Our focus of our program is on practices. Less on theory, more on practice. It's heavy on practices. We have a graduate program with the masters, and we have a cyber conference, as Jay mentions, each year. We have a cyber conference, April 8th, I believe it is, coming up in the next year, where we invite guests from around the globe, from around the world, and they speak on different aspects of dispute resolution and restorative practices. And so we make that a forum for all the universities and the different programs to come in so that students can see the work, professor students, practitioners from various locations can zoom in around the globe to chat about these different aspects of practice. And so it's very popular. People enjoy coming to it. I think you're welcome to come to it in the coming year, and we'll have more information about that coming up.
Yeah, and the last one was specifically on peace engineering. We have one question here. Just one second.
Okay, sure.
Hello, I have one question about how would you use software engineering and also artificial intelligence tools to improve dispute systems resolutions?
Yeah. So on the AI side of it, what I see a lot of the arbitrators are doing now is and mediators are accessing cases as they do the case. They are actually accessing, case names, case principles as they're going along in the arbitration and mediation. And this is saving arbitrators and mediators a lot of time, right? So this is a good thing because it adds value. One has to be careful, though, that the AI is not, you have to check this stuff out because it could hallucinate, right? So as an arbitrator mediator, you start using this stuff and bang, you could get some case names or some entirely fictional, set of principles from a case, or even a case name that's fake. So AI hallucinates. So, and there's a lot of examples of that. So there are cases in court in Canada and the US, actually one in British Columbia, where the lawyers went into court and they were using AI to present their cases. And they were fake cases. AI had created these cases, they didn't exist. And so bad idea. Same with, I think New York has a few cases, New York State, where lawyers use these cases to their detriment, because they relied on AI. So yes, you can use AI as part of design. You could design it in, tell the parties we're using AI to help us access cases. However, one has to be careful that those cases are real and that the AI isn't creating, fake cases, which it could do.
It's basically what Gabriel had spoken about in his previous presentation too, that it has to be a hybrid methodology, right? A little bit of AI and a little bit of human sources.
Yeah. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's absolutely true.
Thank you very much, Brian. Continuing on this topic, we have now Scott Martin. I'd like to thank you for introducing Scott to us, who is today in Brazil.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian.
You bet, Scott. Yeah, take it away.
Okay.